Did you really think that we were gonna stop? Did you really think that we were gonna quit? Did you really think that we were gonna forget the sounds of the chains and the cracks of the whip? Did you really?
Time is flying. We moving fast. We are at the end of April. Wow. That's major, right? We about to go into May. And this podcast have definitely been getting a lot of feedback. A lot of people are talking about it, and it's blowing up, and I like it. And we're going to continue to motivate people and focus on the three powerful things that I know that we have to accomplish before we can see this next big move, and that is unity, ownership, and our global identity. Unity, ownership, and our global identity. And we're going to talk about that. So let's get started breaking down the divide. So what you got for us, Tracy?
I wrote this question down. Why was it important for you to identify or point out that Raymond was liked? Because I noticed when they were in the restaurant that when he came in, not just he attracted every culture, old, young,
Right.
white,
Right.
African American.
Right.
So it was how you actually put that in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted you to kind of elaborate a little bit about that.
Right. Right. Raymond definitely is he's gifted and very charismatic, but his gift and his ability is to articulate thoughts and ideas. And I think that no matter, watch this, what generation, no matter what culture, if you have the ability to communicate, you're going to be able to reach a lot of people, and a lot of people are going to be able to identify with you. And I have to say this, in this information age, this podcast speaks of this.
Yes.
I never thought we would be at a time where entertainment is communication. Up until this point, we were just singing. We was just, singing, dancing, playing ball, and A, B, C, and D. But it seemed like the information age is bringing out the intelligence in us. And I think it's about that time. And I think it's good that we can actually say, let's put on the podcast and let's talk about a subject. Let's talk about the divide. Let's talk about unity. Let's talk about the next big move. So Raymond had this ability to articulate a thought and an idea and captivate a room and captivate people, because when the truth of the matter is, this is how you grow. This is how you connect. What? Communication.
Right.
People say trust is the foundation of the relationship, and it's not. Communication is the foundation of the relationship. You can trust a person all you want. If that person stopped talking to you,
Yes.
and then you stop talking to that person, the relationship gonna die. The relationship gonna die. So he had this ability to not just talk to individuals, but talk to a group of people. At this point, he's talking to the whole nation. So communication was, if you're looking for an answer, what was that thing that made everybody like him? What was that thing? It had to be communication. It had to be communication. Like you point out before, Newton allowed him to go last because Newton knew that he couldn't communicate and convey that thought and that idea like Raymond can. Okay?
Right.
Which brings us to this point. Watch this. If we are going to achieve unity, ownership, global identity, we have to master communication in our community. We have to start talking. We have to I can't even talk. We have to start talking to one another. Right? And guess what? Here go that different style again. You don't have to talk like me. You don't have to talk like that. We don't have to talk, we don't have to use the D and Dows, the King James. We don't have to use, no, we don't. We don't have to use big words, right? And I think that's what got the people liking Raymond too when it comes to communication. He don't use too many big words where you got to stop and go to the dictionary to define them, right? He talked on their level to elevate them to a higher thought, right? And that's what I want us to do here on this podcast. Listen, you're going to hear me, messing up the grammar. You might hear country grammar.
Right.
You might hear some slang. But guess what? Don't lose the thought. Don't lose the idea. Don't lose the concept, right? Okay, one more point I'm going to leave you on. How are you communicating with your spouse? How are you communicating with your kids? How are you communicating with your neighbor? How are you communicating with the people in your circle?
Right.
Because that's going to bring what? Unity, right? Here goes something. Even though we're going to be talking about the supernatural, and I'm going to talk to you about the supernatural, how we got to do this supernaturally when the time is right, right? But right now, I'm going to give you a biblical example of what I just said about communication, right? A biblical example.
Okay.
Now, I really, I try to stay social, political, right. A, B, C, and D, because I want to identify with everybody, right? In Genesis, the 11th chapter, these people are building this tower to reach into heaven, right? They build this tower, and God says, let's go down to see what they're building up, right? And so it's a condescending statement because they doing all they can to build, and they think they're accomplishing, and then God says, oh, let's go down to see what they're trying to build up. Not let's go across or let's go up. Let's go down to see what they're building up, which teaches us, come on, we can't build on his level, right? But that's another lesson. Like, main point I'm trying to make is this. But he did turn around and gave him a compliment. He says, hey, whatever they imagine, they're going to be able to do. You know why? Why you think he gave them that compliment? Whatever they imagine, they're going to be able to do. That's why we got to go down and see what they build. Why do you think he gave them that compliment? Because of communication. They are communicating.
Right.
And their communication is so keen and so powerful. They are inspiring to build something on this level. Even though they haven't got here yet, we're going to come down, and that's what we're going to do. We ain't going to break their legs, and we ain't going to break their finger. We're not even going to take their tools from them. Guess what we're going to do? Twist their tongue. Bam. And so he twists their tongue, and they stop communicating with each other. And guess what? The building stopped. Come on, man. That's a powerful illustration that if we would just start communicating with each other again, guess what we can do? We can build a tower of unity. We can build something that cannot be destroyed by racism, right? An unfair school system or unfair economic system. We can build something, right? But we have to start communicating.
So the key for me to communication is that someone's talking and communicating, but you also have you have to be listening.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because what happens is when we're sitting down to communicate, everyone wants to get their point across.
Absolutely. And I think, at the risk of being redundant, that's what kind of helped Raymond communicate with the people effectively. Because somewhere along the line, he's hearing the people. He's listening to the people. And so now he can effectively communicate to them and vice versa. Is there any other point? Time is flying already. Is there any other point?
It was a question about the African American male. We kind of want to touch on that about wanting the approval of the father. The father's blessing, the father's approval, the father.
Right. Now, if we are going to successfully, we're going to deal with this in another chapter, but if we are going to successfully bring this unity in a ownership and global identity, we have to see the father and son relationship in the community. We have to see that there was a major piece missing from the puzzle, and that major piece is the older generation fathering the next generation, particularly when it comes to the male, right? And so, and I know what it means to father males and men who went to prison and men who've been on drugs or men who were drug dealers or men who was doing a lot of negative things, and they actually turned their entire life around once I fathered them. And so, and I watched this and I know it works 1,010%. And so Raymond had that with his father. His father actually gave him the father's blessing and was able to put him on the path for purpose.
Right. Even in the position that Raymond's father was in.
Right.
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 So that's powerful.
And it is powerful because here it is right here. Here it is right here. Fasten your seatbelt. You ready? You ready?
I'm ready.
The African American community have never been fathered. One of the reasons why it's a cycle of violence, it's a cycle of black on black violence, is because there's an anger that we haven't been fathered.
Right.
And that's very important.